Campaign 2018 is sponsored by Wisconsin Hospital Association, Wisconsin Counties Association, Wisconsin Realtors Association, Marshfield Clinic Health System, and Campaign 2018 partner Milwaukee Journal Sentinel.
WisconsinEye is on the campus of the Chippewa Valley Tech College. We're interviewing Jeff Smith from Eau Claire. He's a Democrat in the 31st Senate District. Jeff, welcome back to WisconsinEye.
Thanks, Steve.
You served 2 terms in the Assembly, and then you got out, and you have watched the Republicans make a whole bunch of changes over 8 years. Is that the reason your Facebook page for your campaign says it's time to go back to clean water, clean elections, fully fund public schools? Are those your top 3 priorities?
They probably are. They probably are, on top of clean elections, or I should say open elections. We have some serious issues with the way they've passed laws to make it difficult to vote for people.
Okay, so those are your top 3 priorities.
Yeah.
Let's land on fully fund public schools. We're not now spending enough money in aids to K-12?
We aren't in the public school system. I would say we need to actually decide, are we actually have the power and money to support 2 systems? Because that's what we're doing now with this wide open voucher system that they've been pushing. And the voucher system is, in my mind, obviously a way to weaken our public school system and take money away from it.
So Jeff, what would you do to the choice program, which, as you're aware, grew from Milwaukee to Racine, now statewide?
Well, ultimately, I'd like to be done with it. It is obviously a failed experiment that started in like 1990. Is that about right? And it hasn't proven any success or done any great favors for Milwaukee. But all it's done is made the public schools even more difficult and scrambling for resources to be able to survive.
What changes do you want to reverse in the process of voting?
The process of voting, first of all, if you might recall, I was chair of elections and campaign reform and took that very seriously. The reason I was there, because I wanted to be in that position. And we put together a wide sweeping election reform bill that did not pass in 2010, but it was what we call the Voter Protection Act. I would reintroduce that, but I would add a lot more things now that I would like to reverse voter ID. Mm-hmm. I'd like to make sure that people can register. When all voters eligible to vote should be registered. We need to give people more opportunity to vote, even if it means earlier absentee voting or mail-in voting. All sorts of things have to be done so people have the opportunity to vote, and give them more opportunity to study the ballot and know who they're voting for.
The U.S. Supreme Court ruled yesterday, well, I guess the legal experts said they punted on the issue of reapportionment and redistricting. You played a key role when Democrats ran the session and the Capitol in 09-10. Why didn't your party advance anything to go towards the Iowa model? How come your party didn't act on redistricting?
Because every party that comes into power, the leaders who lead those caucuses are convinced, as my leaders were, oh, we're going to draw the lines. I'm just being very honest with you.
Appreciate that.
I wanted that bill to pass. I was second on that bill. Spencer Black kept warning our caucus, and him and I wanted this. So we are the only ones that actually held a hearing. We held a hearing for that bill. We did not get it any further than that and get it on the calendar, past committee. But unfortunately, I think the Democratic leaders have learned a hard lesson. Okay. As when 2010 did not turn out the way they thought. And I would ask that every candidate, every voter out there, or anyone who cares, needs to get their candidate to pledge beforehand that this is something they would vote for.
Going towards the Iowa model?
going towards the Iowa model or something similar. So
Which
it
would
takes
take-
it out of the hands of the legislators.
Okay, which would take a constitutional change, which would take at least,
No.
It would not?
Iowa model would not take a constitutional change.
it would not.
Nope, because as long as the legislature still has to vote on it, then it follows constitutional law. The only thing that would change is who actually draws the map and then presents it to the legislature.
LFB would draw it under
Yeah.
that. Yeah, understand. Okay, let's work through some different issues. Levy limits. Local governments have been operating under levy limits since 2006. They say, local government leaders say it's hurting their ability to provide services. Time to loosen those limits or get rid of them?
Get rid of them.
Get rid of them.
When I came from town government, it certainly was a driving force for me that I realized that I couldn't. One thing, I was also very active in the school district. Those two things that I saw how oppressive legislators were for local government. As much as they talk about it in campaigns, as much as they promise their constituency that they are all about local control, and they fall back on that promise, well, that's baloney. Actions speak louder than words. Local officials should have the ability, as being elected, they are elected just like legislators are, they should have that ability to make the decisions based on what their needs are in their community and in their school district. I don't care if it's city, county, or school districts. Those people are elected just like we are in the legislature, and they ought to have that ability. And things are different in one district to another district or one city to another city.
31st Senate District is a rural district. So let's talk about rural health care. Two questions. Aging residents and household income less than the state average, more and more health care provided by Medicaid, Medicare. What are your thoughts on how to maintain or improve rural health care, Jeff?
Well, I'm going to start with, I just met with a group of health care home providers. They're concerned because their funding has been cut so that they can't even afford to continue to provide that service. We're at a crisis mode here. We're at a crisis mode where we have a state government who will not take the federal funding that our tax dollars is supporting. They're not allowing our tax dollars to come back into Wisconsin to provide the funding we need to provide those services to our own citizens. We need to, first of all, number one, accept the funding for Medicaid expansion. Then we need to pass a bill to allow all residents the ability to consider signing on to Badger Care if they want to buy or purchase their insurance through Badger Care. Doesn't cost the state anything. It's just allows them to purchase it through the Badger Care program, which is much cheaper for most people.
Does state government have a role in recruiting and retaining physicians, nurses, and other healthcare workers in areas that are short on those professionals?
Well, I think we could, right? We could provide motivation. We could provide incentives. We provide incentives all the time for private businesses, as we see with Foxconn, for instance.
You would have voted against Foxconn?
I would have voted against Foxconn, and I would
Why?
have rallied against Foxconn.
Why?
How is it helping northwestern Wisconsin? What is it doing for northwestern Wisconsin except taking our money, tax dollars down there? We can't fix our roads, Steve. We can't fix our roads. It's costing taxpayers not only the tax dollars to spend there, it's costing us $670 a year more in our auto and truck repairs because of our bad roads. It's awful. So we can't fix our roads, but we can put $4 billion into a private company and then build a new road to Illinois so the workers coming from Illinois can get to their job. What about Wisconsin workers?
How would you break the impasse in the Capitol over highway funding? Gas tax, registration fee, or the T word, tolling?
Well, I think it's a combination of things. I just was on a tour with town government people and county government people on roads, and they all say the same thing. It's not going to be one fix, not one of those things. What I really like what I heard was looking at a combination of those things, which includes a value added. So the value of your vehicle determines
age and the
your
value.
registration.
Okay.
Why should someone who is, so that's a more progressive way to look at it. Why should someone who pays, who has a $60,000 vehicle pay the same registration fee as someone who has a $2,000 vehicle?
Okay. Given the mass shootings, school shootings, do we need to change gun laws, sir?
We need to improve on our regulations. We currently all agree that anyone who wants to drive a car has to take lessons, has to register the car, has to get a license, and even every 7 years or whatever it is, has to go back and take that test. Mm-hmm. Why do we think that's all right? And we do, but it's not all right to do the same sort of thing for someone who wants to have a lethal weapon. And I think we need to have a real discussion about what we mean by assault weapons. We don't define that well, and it causes a lot of friction with people. I would say we should start talking about weapons of war. People in our private citizens do not need weapons of war. And
Assault?
Yeah.
Assault weapons?
Assault weapons. So a lot of things have worked in the past, and it hasn't hurt. I've hunted most of my life. I grew up as a hunter. It isn't about hunting, and I know people feel some reason they need to defend themselves from the government, for instance. Well, I don't think we're going to, if the government were to really come after us, we're in trouble anyway, and we're not going to have the weaponry to stop that.
Circle back to your campaign theme of fully fund public schools. Would you, if we need more revenue to give more to public schools, where would you find that?
I would reprioritize. Our budget is always a document of our priorities, and we got to quit giving money away. We have a WEDIC, which, by the way, has proven time and time again has been unaccountable, handing out money and incentives to private companies. We have all these private-public contracts that we're into, but we're not accountable to them. We need to change that. Where's our money going? I think every taxpayer would agree that they want more accountability. And once we have more accountability and we prioritize and we actually listen to our constituents, what their needs are, I think you're going to find that, especially in rural Wisconsin, I know that I do when I knock on doors, they want their schools. They want their schools to stay where they are. Our small communities like Plum City and Elmwood and places where I've been, Maryland, Alma Center, they want their schools to still be there for them. That's the core of their community.
UW system funding. We're in the 6th year of a tuition freeze on resident undergraduate tuition. Should the freeze continue to a 7th and 8th year?
That's a tough one, Steve. I most definitely want to be sure that everyone who wants to get a college degree gets a college degree. We are similar to as in healthcare. This country, we are behind so many other countries in this world in not just opening up our public education system so that everybody can go to school for free. I'd like to see that ultimately to be our goal. Our public schools, even the university system, should be open to all of our citizens in the state. We shouldn't be putting our students in such a position where they are spending the rest of their working career paying off a student debt.
Should they be able to refinance student debt?
Yes, absolutely.
Much of there's going to be a huge issue next year in the state budget. Do we need a new prison? The Green Bay and the Waupun prison are built in the 1800s. We're closing the juvenile prisons. Do we need a new state prison?
We need to reevaluate why we're putting people in prison. Why are we the most incarcerated state in the country? By far. This ideas from the 90s that were pushed of people being punished rather than helping people rise up out of the wherever they are that causes them to commit a crime or mental health. 60% of people in prison, I believe is the number, have a mental health issue. But we're not addressing that. We're just punishing. 50% are drug addicts, but we're not addressing that. We're just punishing them for that. Those things need to be addressed rather than building more prisons.
Okay.
Prisons are costing us money.
The debate over medical marijuana and legalizing recreational marijuana, your positions?
I think that debate's over. We just are still behind, in Wisconsin, we're still behind the rest of the country.
We should do both those things?
We should.
Okay. Next step to fight the opioid, methamphetamine, heroin epidemic?
Yeah, and I know the opioid epidemic gets the headlines, but certainly in western Wisconsin, we have a meth problem. And I've been really fortunate to have an office right next to Expo, and that's ex-incarcerated people's organizing, and I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot from people. They want to not be addicted. They want to have a life. They want these things, and they know that how it works and how treatment can work and how treatment courts can work, how we can help people. This has to happen. We got to put our money into helping people rather than punishing people.
Last question, Jeff. Primary is August 14th. There are 3 Dems running there. You want to highlight differences between you and the other 2?
You know, I can't talk about the other 2. All I can say is that I have the experience. I know that when we get there, and I think that we have an opportunity as a Democratic Party to take the majority in the Senate, and we have to be bold when we get there. We can't be training ground. We have to be coming right out of the chute and say, these are the things we have to fix and the things we have to address, the things that we've talked about today, for instance. So I know that I can do that. I know that not only did when I lost my seat in 2010, I didn't disappear. For the reason that I know my work is not done until we turn this state around. I know that my children have to have a future, and if hopefully they have produced some grandchildren for me, they have to have a future in Wisconsin. Clean water is essential. We have got to regulate CAFOs and mining and the things that are risking what our most treasured resource in this state is clean groundwater, and we have got to protect that. So those sorts of things I know that I have championed and will continue to champion, along with campaign finance reform, election reform, and funding our schools.
Jeff Smith of Eau Claire is a Democratic candidate in the 31st Senate District. The primary is August 14th. Jeff, thanks for visiting with WisconsinEye.
Thank you.
Thanks.